I'm William E. Logis, Associate Professor of New Media Communications and Sociology at Oregon State University's School of Arts and Communication.
Todd Kesterson. I teach in New Media Communications classes in video, 3D animation modeling, and virtual reality.
I'm Josh Reeves. I am an assistant professor in New Media Communications and Speech Communication at Oregon State University.
I'm Carla Pyatt from Portland State University. I'm one of the teachers here. My background is high-resolution computer graphics, and this really ties in very nicely with the concept of artificial intelligence, or AI. So Portland State University actually has a nice group working on machine learning, which is artificial intelligence. And so we are actually on the forefront of some of these systems that are beginning to really refine how the pixels are examined.
Absolutely. I mean, it applies to my field of work in the sense that I do research on it, and I think it's an important question for us all to consider, especially as media professionals or media majors. We have to think about the future of artificial intelligence and automation and how it's going to impact our lives. So yeah, it certainly impacts my work, but not my day-to-day work as a professor in the sense that it has changed my teaching or anything like that. It hasn't. It's just an object of criticism for my research.
Mostly in the gaming realm. There's a game called Facade that I play in the class that I teach about video games. And that's an example of an early 2000s attempt to apply some of the principles of artificial intelligence to what is more or less a game environment.
I have experience in AI in ways that probably most people do in some cases. Our phones incorporate AI, video games incorporate AI, Google's choice of advertising when you search incorporates AI, smart features in cars that are lane sensing capability, those are incorporating AI. So I use it in many normal ways like that, in addition to some specialized ways related to the work I do. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is at a point right now where researchers believe maybe at the level of a 6-year-old child's capacity to process information. So it's developed, but not to the degree which I think people might imagine it is at this point. The capacity to process information, to manage data is well established. The ability to reason and express emotion and essentially be self-aware is a long ways out.
Now, and this is where my tie-in with computer graphics comes in, now artificial intelligence is working at the pixel level and looking at the probabilities of these pixels being turned on to represent what a dog is. And they have these, we call them bots, or you could think of them as little mini robots in software, that this is a bot that has learned everything there is to know about a dog, and this is a bot that knows everything there is to know about what a leash is. And so you get these to have learned, the characteristics of what these are. And so now we can start to search images on the web, not from their text-based keywords, but based on what the image is.
So artificial intelligence obviously comes under a lot of guises, and I specialize in surveillance and the military, and so most of the stuff that I've studied with artificial intelligence pertains specifically to the military, but I've also studied it in the workplace as well. So I think that it's having a revolutionary effect. It's beginning to have a revolutionary effect across different sectors of the economy, in the military, but also in the workplace and in education. And, yeah.
I think it's beginning to move away from what I'll call a context-specific area where, for instance, you could have a machine intelligence that was really good at playing chess and nothing else. It's moving from there to more flexible kinds of capabilities. So Siri, for instance, is supposed to be capable of addressing a variety of different subjects. There are still things Siri isn't really prepared to address, but it's certainly more flexible than even Deep Blue was, which was the chess computer. So that seems to be the direction. They're trying to take it away from a very limited, very specific task-oriented intelligence and move it into a more generalized, familiar, flexible intelligence.
In essence, go where it wants us to go. It will reshape our society in ways that we will not be able to control. It will change our social relations in ways that we will not be able to control. So by positing that we can take it somewhere, I think has a certain short-sightedness about the power of artificial intelligence, because it's going to change, perhaps, I mean, and gradually over the course of decades, it'll certainly change most things about our daily lives, about how we interact with one another, about transportation, about how we spend money, about everything.
We're really in a revolutionary stage of artificial intelligence just because of what we can do with computing. Today, we don't have to have a supercomputer anymore to really get some amazing results with artificial intelligence. So, I really think the where it's going is with what's called deep learning.
I think that's a really good question. Management positions are typically those that have been retained for humans. So even in factories, you will see humans actually performing tasks of supervision over machines. Whereas you used to have a factory floor full of workers, now you have a couple of human supervisors that are, observing the machines, studying the machines, carrying out maintenance on the machines. So the human has been, in a sense, reduced to a maintenance worker and a supervisor of the machine in a lot of these areas. I would assume that would continue to exist, where you would have a class of supervisory human workers that would be able to monitor and manage the function of an otherwise automated workforce in a lot of sectors of the economy. But, a lot of the tasks that are carried out, maintenance and management, they can be done increasingly well by artificial intelligence, so I'm not sure if they're safe.
When I worked for an insurance company for a few years when I was just out of college. And so I was a low-level manager, and much of my job consisted of gathering information from the people I managed, compiling it into reports so that my boss would receive that information in a form he understood, and then he would massage it more and send it up to his boss. And so managing in an environment like an insurance company, which is information intense, is largely a matter of receiving information, reducing it in a way, just reducing stuff that your boss doesn't need to know, and sending the boss a report that then other people in your position are sending the equivalent of. And then that boss arranging that information in a way that's helpful to the next boss. A lot of that, in fact, is automatable.
So in terms of the workplace, I mean, certainly the idea of efficiency, that's all the workplace is about. And human labor is not part of the equation unless there's a desire to keep it. So ultimately, the management's desire is to have something that's predictable, that gets around the sort of inconveniences of people's work days, and ultimately produces faster and more reliably. So that's really the ultimate place in the workplace for AI.
So I've done some research on the different impacts that artificial intelligence has had on different sectors of labor. And traditionally, we've seen with the Industrial Revolution, blue-collar work being displaced by machines. But what artificial intelligence does is that it changes that. It's not only revolutionizing the factory, but it's also providing new opportunities for what we typically consider to be white-collar work to also be managed or supplemented, augmented, or even replaced by artificially intelligent machines. So you're starting to see the emergence of artificially intelligent journalism, for example, but also the emergence of artificial intelligence in medicine. I mean, really across the economy. And so I think that's the major impact that artificial intelligence has had, is that it's opening up the possibility of automation in what we call white-collar sector jobs.
I think to the extent that we expect too much of it, we get easily frustrated. I think the processing power of computing is best used for really repetitive, boring tasks that, in fact, tend to distract human beings when they try to do that. If you try to do the same mathematical calculation for hours and hours and hours, you may be pretty good at it at first, but you get fatigued, it's not motivating. But relying on AI to do more of the creative work that in fact we tend to find rewarding, I think is mistaken. And so I suppose you could program an AI context to compose music, let's say, or even to write scripts of TV sitcoms. But why deprive a real human being of the job of doing that, which I think tends to be really satisfying to the people who like doing that. Doing it just because a machine can do it seems to be a mistake about what we value about the machine capabilities.